you see how they react when you steal their girlfriend or when they, and all that.
It's like the linemen the linemen think they're responsible for the backs.
Yeah.
Backs think that they got the world.
Mm-hmm.
You scored 50 goals, and Elmer Vasco is whatever he's doing.
Elmer's a good guy. We had some good guys. I see Pierre Palat. Now, I shouldn't say. I see Pierre. I was with him over the weekend before I came down up in Canada. Yeah. Pierre's a good guy. I like Pierre.
He is a class act.
When I'd go around behind the net to pick up the puck, Pierre used to be there. Bobby, let me touch it. And then when I'd go down the other end and go in the end, yeah, that's when the referees gave the points. He'd go to the referee. Me and two other guys, he'd say. He had a hole poked right in his jersey here.
You know, the media gives the public the impression that, you know, this team idea that there's all this closeness, and maybe for a particular season or a particular time there is, but it seems to me, from what I've, talking to people like you, it's fleeting. It's there for
It is.
bit.
You're absolutely right. You get together for a short period of time to win the hockey game, but as soon as the game is over, this group goes with their clique, this group goes with their clique, and so on and so forth. I believe the closest team that we had that I played on was the Winnipeg team, because I had something to do with recruiting players, and I insisted on having guys with good heads and good hearts that cared about the other guy first. And it's just like my kids, I try to instill in them that I said, guys, think about the other guy first. I said, just think about this. How many in your class? They said 32. How many in your hockey team? 15. I said, okay, let's say you thought of all 32 of your classmates first. I said, ostensibly, 32 guys would be thinking of you first. Isn't that right? And I said, the same with your hockey club. You go out there and you try to put someone in home free for an empty net goal. Think about them first. You're going to have 15 guys thinking about you first. And that's a pretty good feeling, to know that you have 15 guys thinking of you first. And that's the way I've tried to instill it in my kids and in our hockey club in Winnipeg. I told our guys, Billy Robinson, Ben Hatskin, who was the owner of the team, Jerry Wilson, who scouted for us over in Europe and what have you. I said, Jerry, get guys that have good heads and good hearts and care about the other guy, that aren't guys that are afraid to go in the corner for fear they'll muss up their hair, that are always in front of the mirror combing their hair. And I said, we don't want any of those guys. I said, I want a group of guys that'll sit here in this room in between periods and talk about what we can do to help one another out. And that's the kind of team that we want. And we were able to do it in Winnipeg because I had a little bit to say about it. And in Chicago, we had a lot of guys that were close. There were a few of us that were very close and that cared about winning, cared about how the team played and how the franchise did and how those people were entertained up in the stands. But there were other guys, they could care less. And as you say, we were together when the game was to be won, but after hockey was over, you never really hunt those guys out. Ron Murphy, if you remember Ron back, he and I were very close and we kept a relationship. Now Stan, Brother Dennis, and I see Pierre Palat once in a while. Talk to Tony Esposito once in a while on the phone. Talk to Phil once in a while on the phone. But other than those in that group, I don't see many of the other guys. I run into Keith Magnuson here in the city because we're here, but we didn't spend as much time together as what Stan and I. Of course, we started in school together in St. Catharines, played football together. We're in the same class, double dated. He had his dad's half-ton truck. I sat in the back, out in the
front with the two girls.
No, that's when Stan had the boogie hair, you know, the brush cut on the top and the DA back here. It was terrific. Shared everything, you know.
The hardest slap shot you were Dennis?
Brother Dennis could shoot the puck harder than anyone I ever saw. One night we were playing in Montreal, or against Montreal in Chicago Stadium, and Dennis came down in front of our bench and just stepped on the blue line, and he let one rip. Jacques Plante was in goal, and he never moved. And the puck sailed over Plante's shoulder and hit the glass right behind the net. And it didn't just hit the glass and bounce back on the playing surface and the glass disintegrated. He bored a hole in that plexiglass as if you would stand from here to the wall with a 12-gauge shotgun full choke. And the puck ended up through the glass on the spectator's lap in the front seat. And then the glass broke. And I'd never seen anyone else. I got lucky and the puck hit on an edge maybe. The edge of the puck hit the glass and it would break. But he bored the puck right through. Dennis, if his power laid off in the corner, that's where the puck was going to go. He'd let out shaft and it would go over there in the corner instead of maybe letting up a little bit and putting it on the net here. The difference between our shots, Dennis could, it was a heavy, heavy shot. It just, when he'd hit the goaltender, it was just like a piece of lead. I know when Glenn Hall would get right out of the net. Wouldn't stand in the net when Dennis would come in. He'd stand way over on the side, and then Dennis would still hit him when he'd have the 4x6. But Dennis's shot was so heavy and so hard. And my shot, I just tried to get it on that 4x6 maybe a little more often, that was all. But Dennis could, he could drill it.
How'd you feel when Dennis came onto the Blackhawks?
Dennis and I, we didn't really know one another. There are 6 years difference. As a matter of fact, it's Dennis' birthday. This is the 19th today. Dennis' birthday today. Brother Gary was day before yesterday, I believe. Dennis is 6 years younger than I. And when I went away from home to play junior hockey, I was 14. That made Dennis only 8. So I didn't really get to know Dennis. He had his group of snotty-nosed kids that he played with, and of course I was a little more sophisticated and played with the girls at that time. And I didn't know there was a difference. But I went away to play when I was 14, and then I'd come back in the summertime, and I had my friends, and Dennis still had his friends. And I didn't really get to know Dennis until he came, all of a sudden, here's Brother Dennis going to play for the Chicago Blackhawks. And I said, now how am I going to act? I hardly know my kid brother. And I made it a point, I said, I'm not going to try to run his show. He's going to make it, and he'll make it on his own because he is a good hockey player, because Dad kept telling me that Dennis was coming along very, very well. And all I would do was watch him. I'd watch, and if he got in any trouble, and he apparently did at times, he'd come to me and ask me, Bob, what's the matter with me? Or Robert. That's, everyone called, the family called me Robert. My mother called me Robert, my dad and everyone else called me Robert. And he'd say, Robert, what's the matter with me? And I'd tell him. I'd say, try this, Dennis, and try that. And then away he'd go again. But I never ever tried to run his life, and he had his friends. He and Dougie Jarrett were very close. And I ran with whomever would have me, and and we didn't really get to know one another until we were finished playing hockey. And finally we've got to know one another, and he's just a great, great kid, and we have a great relationship. His wife, Mary Sue, and Deborah, they get along just like the two peas in a pod, and Dennis and I we're very, very close.
One quick one. When you say you're flying around all the time, what kinds of things are you doing?
I'm in, as we talked about earlier, I'm involved in the cattle business. I raise polled Hereford cattle, and P-O-L-L-E-D, that means they're naturally dehorned. We breed the horns off them, and they got a little pole in the middle of their forehead. And they're the white faces, and I have bulls that I have in stud where I extract the semen, and then I sell semen to my fellow breeders in Canada and the United States and in Europe and South America. And it keeps me busy to go to the different sales and the different shows in Canada to keep up with the wants of the beef cattle business. Also, I'm involved with a company in Canada called Ciba-Geigy, C-I-B-A-G-E-I-G-Y. They're a Swiss company that, amongst other things, they manufacture pesticides and herbicides for the agricultural business, and they have seed corn and seed grain. And they also manufacture a product, a little fly tag called Bovade, that we put in the cattle beast's ear to keep the flies from bothering them, so that they're contented. You've heard of contented carnation from contented cows. Well, these are contented cows. Every cattle beast that wears our Bovade tag, and this is not only for beef cattle, it's for the milch cattle too. We've run tests, the government's run tests, and they've found out that animals that wear these Bovades not only put on more meat, but they give more milk, therefore they wean a heavier calf. And the milch cattle, they give more milk in their lactation period. So I'm busy running around the country promoting Bovade for Ciba-Geigy, as well as doing the odd speaking engagement here and there when folks want me to speak at their wind-up banquets for the kids.
Wonderful. Where's the tag go?
Hey, thanks.
I wanted to assist.
stuff here is the only problem.
Steve, clear your net. Sorry, Bobby.
Enjoy yourself.
Much late work.